Preseason football is done. It's time for real football. But what are some of the fantasy implications of preseason week 3? That's what we're talking about in today's video. As always, guys, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Help us get to 1,400 subscribers and join our Discord. We're getting a lot of people in there. You can ask questions, trade, waiver wire, start, sit, all that stuff in there. So it's free to join. Link is in the description. Preseason week 3 is done. Let's look at some of the implications. I talked about this in the last video about Brock Bowers. And it's tough to know because Brock Bowers, you see the ADP there. He's at the 205, which essentially means like if you want Brock Bowers and you're picking anywhere from the 106 to the end of the first round, that you need to take him with either a late first if you're picking in the back end or an early to mid second round pick, which is a huge investment. And I get it. Brock Bowers is awesome. Nothing that I'm about to say doesn't make me think that he can't be the tight end 1 for fantasy football. That being said, their rotation and their use of Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers in the preseason shows that Michael Mayer is going to be playing a decent amount of snaps here, guys. He's going to be in. They're not going to play. They're going to play a lot of 11 personnel. Maybe they play a lot of 2 tight ends as well. I'm not sure. But Brock Bowers is being rotated a lot with Michael Mayer, and I kind of get it because Michael Mayer is more of that traditional blocking tight end. Brock Bowers is like 240, and he's more of that receiving guy. This is the thing that keeps guys like Dalton Kincaid and Kyle Pitts from being fantasy relevant, is that they just don't play enough because they don't do all the little things that a tight end needs to do. This team's going to want to run the ball through Ashton Genty. It's going to be part of their their offense is going to be centered around them. They're going to need someone that blocks a little bit more. So all I'm saying is we're drafting Brock Bowers at the 205 or, early second round pick in this year's fantasy draft. We're doing that because we think he's going to improve on last year. He averaged about 15 and a half PPR points per game. We're expecting him to get to that Kelsey level of 17, 18. I don't think he'll get to 20. Kelsey did 1 year, but Kelsey was, when we were taking Kelsey in the first, second round, he was averaging 17, 18 PPR points per game. That's not what Brock Bowers, that's what he needs to do. And I don't know if it's going to happen if he's not going to be playing 80, 90% of the snaps. So just keep that in mind. I want to push Brock Bowers down a little bit. I'm much happier to get him towards the back end of the second, early third, not with my early second. There's just too many good players there, in my opinion. Pitt, Carolina game. We're looking at Jaylen Warren here. And so we kind of finally see a little bit of what the running back U rotation for the Steelers are going to be. I don't think Jaylen Warren played. I don't think he played the first 2 preseason games, but what the Steelers showed us in this last preseason game is that it's going to be Jaylen Warren on the early downs, Kenneth Gainwell on third downs. And this is a little surprising because obviously Jaylen Warren has been more of a third down running back. With his time with Najee Harris, and now his role is going to be changing to more of that early downs guy. Couple things here. If that's going to be how the rotation is going to be used, we could see a dip in Jaylen Warren's catches, which is going to hurt because catches are so valuable for fantasy for the running back position. Also, what worries me a little bit, a couple things here. I'm worried about Caleb Johnson, who Caleb Johnson is still being drafted pretty high in fantasy drafts. Caleb Johnson's being drafted at the 6-7 turn, which is a starter for your fantasy teams, no matter what format you play in. And I'm worried that Caleb Johnson in the beginning of the season is not going to be doing much. That month of September, he's not going to be that valuable. Now, could he take over in October? Yes. And that's what worries me a little bit about Jaylen Warren as well. Jaylen Warren right now, we're drafting at the same range. At the middle of the 7th round. So we're drafting him a little bit later, but we're still drafting him as a starter. And I'm a little bit concerned that these guys kind of consume each other, right? A little bit. And maybe Jaylen Warren's good for the first month, and then Caleb takes over. Maybe Caleb and Jaylen Warren just share early down work to begin from week 1 onwards, and then Kenneth Gainwell gets the third down stuff. So neither one of those guys are really that valuable unless one of them's used at the goal line. So it's a little bit worrisome, this Steelers running back room. I'm going to kind of take the approach of if I can get a discount on these guys, if I can get a discount on Caleb Johnson and Jaylen Warren, I'll take them. But I think I might pass on their price for my redraft leagues. Colston Loveland, ADP 912. And what I have to say about Colston Loveland here is he's basically in a 50-50 split with Cole Kmet. This team, the Bears, are going to be using a lot of 11 personnel. Yeah. They're going to be a lot of 11 personnel. 11 personnel is one running back, one tight end on the field, which means there's 3 wide receivers on the field. That's how I think this team's going to be running a lot, with Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, and then either Olamide Zacchaeus or Luther Burden. By the way, Luther Burden is the wide receiver 4 for this team as of right now. Zacchaeus is the slot receiver. And so if they're playing a lot of 11 personnel, that means there's only one tight end on the field. And how they're showing us in preseason is that it's basically going to be a 50-50 split between Kmet and Loveland. Right? It's going to be a 50-50 split. And that makes a sense as well. I think Loveland is a better blocker than someone like maybe like a Brock Bowers. At least he comes from a system where they use him more in the blocking game, in the run game blocking for Michigan. But Cole Kmet is also no slouch, man. That guy, like, there was a reason why he was playing 90% of the snaps there, because he can just kind of do it all at the tight end position, and he's a decent receiver. And so, again, my worry for this is this a Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox type of situation here where we don't quite see, Loveland get on the field enough for him to be a consistent fantasy player. The biggest things to tight ends, guys, is are they playing 70% or more of the snaps, preferably over 80%? Because if they are, they're going to be fantasy relevant. K-Dot and Cole Kmet those years. These guys aren't better than Dalton Kincaid, but they've been better for fantasy at times because they're just out there all the time, and you just fall into 3-4 catches, 40, 50 yards. Dawson Knox, and what he did to hurt Dalton Kincaid's numbers. Dawson Knox played over 60% of the snaps last year. Is this going to be a situation where Loveland's on the field for 50, 55% and Cole Kmet on the field for 60% or something? It could be a situation like that. I'm a little bit worried about Loveland. He's in that tier of guys. There's 4 tight ends that I want to take a shot on this year. It is Colston Loveland, it is Tyler Warren, it's Kyle Pitts, and Dalton Kincaid, because those guys are going late enough to where if they don't pan out, it's not going to hurt me. And I think the upside's there. And if they don't hit, I'm going to be able to pick someone up or draft someone like a Jake Ferguson, a Zach Ertz, a Hunter Henry, and be fine. So that's my thoughts on Loveland. I'm fine with where he's going at the 9-10 turn. If he moves up, I'm not going to reach for him at all, though. If he moves up at all, I'm not going to be taking him. Jacory Croskey-Merritt at the 1204 ADP. He seems to be the RB1 early down running back for the Commanders, because Jacory Croskey-Merritt rested his final preseason game while Chris Rodriguez Jr. played. So to me, that's a little telling that they think, okay, it's Jacory Croskey-Merritt and then Chris Rodriguez. So I think there's really good value here. 12th round pick for Jacory Croskey-Merritt is great. Like, at worst, he's probably going to be, I assume he's going to be kind of like what Brian Robinson was last year. Austin Eckler's still there, and Austin Eckler's going to get his carries. He's going to get his 7 to 9 carries. He's going to take most of the catches. Jacory Croskey-Merritt, or Bill Croskey-Merritt, JCM, whatever you want to call him. He didn't do anything in college in terms of catching the ball at his time at New Mexico or Arizona. He had mostly his time at New Mexico. He had 7 catches in 12 games at New Mexico. Didn't really play for Arizona. Only played in 1 game, didn't catch the ball. So this is going to be kind of like Brian Robinson. Now, could he be better? Yes, he could be better. If he's just a more explosive player, then we could be seeing a situation where this guy's more of a top 24 guy rather than an RB3. So I'm excited about Jacory Croskey-Merritt. He seems to be the RB1 early down guy for Washington ahead of Chris Rodriguez. Chris Olave, ADP 705. Now, I've been talking about the Saints a lot lately, and I've been saying how, as a community, whether you make content or you don't make content as a football fan, everyone agrees that the Saints are in the running to have the number 1 pick and have a terrible offense this year. Yet we have 2 fantasy players, Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave, being drafted in like the top 75-ish, which is kind of unusual, right? That's kind of unusual. Usually if you get these terrible, terrible teams, sometimes you don't even get a fantasy player being drafted in the first 7 rounds or so. We got 2 for the Saints. And I get it. Now, what I want to say about Olave is that he was playing in the slot. They had Rashid Shaheed out there and Brandon Cooks on the outside and Olave in the slot, which Olave is going to be out there in 2 wide receiver sets, which is great. In 3 wide receiver sets, it could be Olave in the slot, which I think is actually going to be really, really good. Because if we think there's going to be poor quarterback play with Rattler or Shuck starting at quarterback, then we're not going to want to be on the outside, because outside X receiver, Z receiver targets are a little bit difficult if your quarterback's not as good. Whereas if you're playing in the slot, it's a lot easier targets. So I actually think this could be really good for Olave, and he could return value here going at the 705 and going basically in the top 70, right? At wide receiver, let's see where he's going here. At wide receiver, he's going, it looks like in the outside the top 20 or so. So I think we could get some return value for Olave here. Evan Engram. I am completely 100% out on Evan Engram. Guys, if I can give you any advice here, it's that avoid Evan Engram, avoid this mid-tier of tight ends. In my opinion, either take one of the early ones in Matt Bowers, McBride, Kittle, or just wait until guys like Tucker Kraft, David Njoku, that kind of range of tight ends. Stay away from Laporta, Evan Engram, Bowers. Andrews I'm kind of okay with, but not Bowers, sorry, Kelsey I meant to say. Evan Engram, though, is 100% I'm out on. You have to take him with a 7th round pick, a 7th, 8th round pick. Adam Troutman is going to be on the field a lot. Evan Engram kind of falls into the category of Brock Bowers, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, where he's more of a wide receiver than anything. He's more of a receiving guy than anything. So could he get a decent amount of targets, be the second target getter for this team? Sure, but I think he's going to be off the field a lot. And Evan Engram, what we know from him is that he's all about volume, right? He's a volume type of player. He needs volume. He's not going to, this guy had 115 catches and didn't even hit 1,000 yards back in 2023. 115 catches, didn't hit 1,000 yards. He needs volume, right? And I don't know if he's going to necessarily get that with the Broncos if he's not on the field as much as, we expect him to be. That 2023 season, he played almost 80% of the snaps. And so that's good. With the Broncos, though, what if he's closer to 50, 60% of the snaps? There's a possibility of that. Those catches are going to go down. The yards, he's never been a big touchdown guy. I'm just avoiding Evan Engram. That's my advice to you. Nick Chubb, 1201 ADP. He rested this last game. I think Nick Chubb is going to be the starter until Mixon comes back. So who knows how long that is? Is that going to be the month of September? Is that going to be more? I don't know. Is Nick Chubb going to be any good? Who knows? But if he's the starter for the Texans, he's going to get enough volume to where he's at least going to be bench worthy, flex worthy, bye week replacement worthy type of player. Okay. If this offense is improved, we could see, he could fall into the end zone quite a lot. And also, Nick Chubb was one of the better running backs that, one of the best runners of the football from his prime seasons. Right now, he's just been injured a lot the last two seasons, and he wasn't very good last year when he came back. He had that major injury in 2023. And then he came back in 2024, played in 8 games, and just wasn't very good. That being said, he was a little bit better towards his last couple of games, and then he got hurt again, right? And so those injuries could just be like he slowed down and all that. That being said, he's still only 29 years old. He's going to be 29 basically the entire season. So he's not like he's old. He's just been injured. And so, last time we saw him, Nick Chubb, healthy, which, again, is a long time ago in fantasy football, especially for a running back. 2022, though, the guy rushed for over 1,500 yards, had over 1,750 total yards, 13 touchdowns. I'm not saying he's going to be that, but, he's going to be basically 2 years removed from that gruesome injury we saw in 2023. Maybe we see him get his legs under him a little bit. He's going to have volume, and sometimes opportunity is all that really matters, right? Fantasy football is a game of opportunity. Just like with this next guy in Ollie Gordon, who is probably going to get drafted, but right now his current ADP is at 1905. Most people play in 16, 17 round drafts. Not a lot of people go further than that. Ollie Gordon is essentially not being drafted. I think he will be. I think he's the starter for the Dolphins week 1. I think there's a very good chance he's the starter for the Dolphins week 1. Even if he's not, he is going to be that RB2 with Achane. And, maybe they go back to more of a couple years ago where they used 2 running backs more rather than just one. Ollie Gordon, I wasn't a big fan of coming out of college. He was a 6th-round pick. He was a 6th-round pick in the 2025 draft. He had a lot of people who liked him. And why? Because his 2023 season at Oklahoma State was insane. Over 2,000 total yards. He was kind of Ashton Genty before Ashton Genty. Over 2,000 total yards, 22 touchdowns is what Ollie Gordon had in 14 games at his Oklahoma State 2023 season. 2024, though, he really dipped. He had just over 1,000 yards, 14 touchdowns. He's a little bit slower. He's more of he doesn't really, when you think of Dolphins, you think of speed. Ollie Gordon is not that. He's more of a bulldozer type of guy. But again, sometimes what you think of a player in terms of their skill, it doesn't really matter, right? I've suffered from this, like Brian Robinson. I didn't think was a very good player. It didn't really matter because they were using him, right? That's a good example. Ollie Gordon might just be this type of player. When I don't personally think he's very good, that being said, he's on a good offense and a good run scheme, and he has opportunity. Ollie Gordon, you can at least get a couple starts to begin the year. I think there's going to be some value there. Dylan Sampson at the 14-12. Another situation that I'm avoiding here is I'm avoiding Quinshon Judkins. I'm out on Quinshon Judkins. Quinshon Judkins is still being drafted, guys. He's at the 8-9 turn. Please avoid him. If he gets into the double-digit rounds, maybe you can take a shot on him. 8th round, though, even at the 8th round, I'm still avoiding Quinshon Judkins. I'm taking Jerome Ford. I'm taking Dylan Sampson. Both these guys I think they're both going to play. And they were basically, Jerome Ford and Judkins were basically in a 50-50 split. It was kind of a little bit like Gibbs and Montgomery, where like Sampson played and then Ford came in. No one was, not one person was in on 3rd downs and at goal line and stuff like that. It was like legitimately 50-50, which honestly, like if teams are going to have more of a 50-50 split, I'd rather they just be like, okay, both of you get goal line work, both of you get passing downs work, and both of you get early downs work, right? And it's very clear to us. So I think Dylan Sampson, who's going in the 14th round, and Jerome Ford, who's going in the early 12th round, are both I'm going to be targeting these guys because I think they both could have a role. I'm a big Sampson fan. I liked him even more than Judkins in the pre-draft process. And so I'm hoping to see Dylan Sampson get to work here. Brashard Smith. Brashard Smith, if you don't know, is a rookie running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. He was drafted in the 7th round this year. He's a converted wide receiver to running back. He spent his first 3 years in college as a wide receiver and basically didn't do anything at Miami. And then he transferred to SMU. They changed him to running back, and he rushed he had over 1,650 total yards and 18 touchdowns at SMU. Now SMU is kind of a offensive factory there, so that's why those numbers are so huge. Keep an eye out. You dynasty players, you know him. He's one of my favorite deep stashes, stash this player. You redraft players might not know Brashard Smith, but keep an eye on him because he was playing in this last preseason game. He was playing in on 3rd downs with the Chiefs. He was playing on 3rd downs with the starters. Mahomes, Kelsey, these guys were out there. Brashard Smith was coming in. It was kind of Pacheco, majority of the work. Kareem Hunt would spell Pacheco, and then Brashard Smith was in on 3rd downs. And if you remember, the last time the Chiefs offense was like what we think of when we think of Mahomes and the Chiefs offense was back in 2022. And one of the key parts of that offense was Jerick McKinnon, who had 800 total yards, 10 touchdowns, and 56 catches. And he was very fantasy relevant that year, guys. Jerick McKinnon was. Jerick McKinnon back in 2022 in PPR, if I remember correctly, I'm pulling it up now. He was the RB20 in point and total points. So he was an RB2, and that makes sense when you have 56 catches and 10 touchdowns. Brashard Smith could play this McKinnon role. I think the Chiefs, what they've been lacking the last 2 years is this running back. They tried it with P. Ryan last year, but it's this running back who can take a dump off and turn it into something that really moves your offense. When Worthy is covered and Rice and Kelsey are covered, dump it off to the running back, and they can give you 10 yards or move the chains or whatever, I think, or even in the red zone. I think they were really lacking this player. I don't think Pacheco's that type of player. Kareem Hunt's not that type of player. It could be Brashard Smith. So just keep an eye on this guy. If he is playing on third downs, we could see a Jerick McKinnon-like season. Now, do I expect him to get 10 touchdowns? Absolutely not. But could he get 50 catches and 800 total yards? He could. Keep an eye on the guy. I really, really like Brashard Smith. Elic Ayomanor, not being drafted. But basically, Calvin Ridley sat out this preseason game. It was Van Jefferson, Elic Ayomanor on the outside, Lockett coming in on 3 wide receiver sets in the slot. So what does that mean? That probably means, obviously, it's Calvin Ridley and Tyler Lockett is the wide receiver 3. Calvin Ridley's the 1, Lockett's the 3. Who's the 2? Who's going to play on the outside, the X position? Is it Van Jefferson or Elic Ayomanor? Keep an eye on Elic Ayomanor. If Cam Ward's good and has a big season and he's playing a lot, Ayomanor, he could fall into a waiver wire type of situation here. And last guy we're talking about is Zamir White, who's not even being drafted according to Fantasy Sharks ADP. But Zamir White, I think, took over the RB2 role for the Raiders. I think he surpassed Raheem Mostert. So just keep that in mind. I think a lot of people – so Raheem Mostert, I believe, is being drafted. Raheem Mostert's drafted in the 19th round, so not really being drafted, but I think Zamir White is the backup. So if something happens to Genty, it could be Zamir White. That's all I have for you today, guys. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys all in the next video.